Hello students, welcome to Soria Learning. Hope you all are doing good. In the last session, we discussed the three basic business entities where we discussed the sole trader, the partnership and the limited companies, where we discussed their features, their advantages and their disadvantages. Now today we are going to talk about the fourth business entity, which is limited liability partnership. In short, we call it as LLP. So first I'll brief and I will revise what were the advantages and disadvantages of those three business entities. In the sole tradership, there was a single owner and liability was unlimited. As we discussed, the personal stake of the owner was also on stake. Similarly, in the case of partnership, there was two or more than owners, which we call them as a partners, and the liability was again unlimited and also the jointly limited. But in the case of limited company, there was an advantage of all the disadvantages that we have discussed in this partnership and the sole trader, that we have a separate legal identity of a company and the liability is limited up to the fully paid value of their shares. Right. So this fourth version, the fourth business entity, which is limited liability partnership. So it takes the advantages of the limited company and retains the characteristic of the partnership firm. So I am going to repeat, students. It takes the advantages of a limited company and retains the characteristics of a partnership firm. So what you are doing, you are actually taking the advantages of both types of business entities and make it a new joint venture. So have you heard about the ventures? So this is kind of business venture where two or more than two members come together to start a business, but that business will again be having a legal separate identity, right? So here it is not that you are having shares, there are no shares, there are no shareholders. The owners are called members, means they can deal, they can do the business in the company's name, not the owner's name, as we have discussed in the case of limited company. So whatever you are doing, either you are dealing with some project, you are purchasing any property, you are purchasing any machinery, you are selling some products, all of these you are doing in the name of the company, and the company can also sue and be sued. Right. So this advantage we have taken from the case of the limited company. Now what are the characteristics that we have taken from that we have retained from the partnership firm is that there is no shareholding, there is no shareholders. The business, the owners, the members are doing the business for their own profits. You are not distributing or offering your shares to the general public or any other investor. You are doing your business for your profit, not in the case of limited company, right? So this is the main feature of this limited liability partnership. This is new type of business entity that has been introduced in the market from around 2000. It started from UK basically. Now it has been common in India and everywhere, where this is a business venture which has the advantages of limited company and retains the characteristics of partnership firm. So we have no directors and of course there are no shareholders in a LLP. So students, हमने क्या किया? What we are doing? What was the main advantage of the limited company? That there is a separate legal identity and जो owners, जो वहाँ के shareholders, investors थे, उनकी जो liability थी वो बहुत limited थी. Limited as in जितना आपका share है company के अंदर, that is only your liability, not your personal wealth. I have taken that advantage in this LLP form where the company is having the separate legal identity and again मेरी liability जो है वो limited है, ठीक है? Now what are the characteristics that I am taking from partnership? That is, there is no documentation required, there is no MOA or AOA. Most of the documents are not required in the case of LLP. You can just are working for your profit, no distributing of shares to other, and you can earn your profit. So fine, we have discussed the features and the liability and documentation required to start a business. This business entity, which is limited liability partnership. Here the main feature is that we have taken the advantages of a limited company by having the limited liability and a legal separate identity of a firm, and also the characteristics of the partnership firm, where we do not have any directors, we do not have any shareholders, is a business venture where we are here together to make a profit, and also it is just what you have put into the business is this your liability, not any extra penny is your liability. Now talking about the income tax or the tax submitted deposited by the company or the owners, then this is the same as in the case of partnership. Owners of the firm pay the income tax as there is no corporate tax. Hence, a LLP business entity is taxed as the normal or the conventional partnership firm submits the tax. Right. So these are the 4 business entities that we have discussed. Now I am just going to differentiate between what we call the owners of these entities. So in the case of sole trader, either we call it as a owner or a sole owner. In the case of partnership firms, we call the owners as partners. In the case of limited company, we call them as a shareholders, and in the case of LLP, we call them members. So please distinguish between the names and what we call to the owners of the different business entities. I would suggest students you to make a table of all the 4 business entities and list their features under their name. So it will help you in reminding the differences between these business entities. After discussing the types of business entities, as I said earlier, we have 2 types of limited companies too. All of you have heard about the 2 types of limited company, that is your private limited company and public limited company. So let us learn what is the difference between the 2, private limited company and the public limited company. So basic difference is that how the company is registering itself in the stock exchange. If you are registering your company as a public limited, then your company will be registered as a public limited. If I want my company to register as a private limited, then it will be called as private limited company. It is the public limited company. If you see the abbreviation or the word in the end PLC, either in the capital letters or in the small letters, if it is written PLC, then it is the public limited company. For example, NTPC, ONGC, all these are the public limited companies, right? Or that doesn't mean that public limited company is just of the government. You can also register your company as a public limited company. The public means that a company can offer its shares to the general public, right? So here public does not mean that the company belongs to the government only. Here the public means that the company can offer its shares to the public. And in the case of private limited company, the abbreviation or you can distinguish the private limited company as PVT Ltd. आपने बहुत सारी companies के पीछे एक names देखा होगा, PVT Ltd, that is private limited, right? So if a company is having a name PVT Ltd at the end, that means this company has registered itself as a private limited company. Okay, so here in the case of private limited company, the company cannot offer its shares to the general public. They generally offer it among themselves, among the friends, colleagues or the relative shareholders. They do not sell them or offer them to the general public. You as a common investor in the market cannot purchase the shares of a private limited company. आपने कभी पेटीएम के शेयर्स देखे? No, because Paytm is not a public limited company. It is a private limited company. So you cannot purchase the share of the Paytm. 197 Communication is the name of the company name of Paytm. Paytm is just a brand name. Once it offers its shares to the general public, it registers itself as a public limited company, then you can go for the purchase of shares of Paytm. Please note one thing, that students, if your company has been registered as a private limited company, then you can re-register it as a public limited company. So what you can do, you can initially register it as a private limited company. You can work as a private limited company. Then if you want your company to further expand, then you can re-register it as a public limited company. Your company should have this minimum amount of assets or the worth to register itself as a public limited. So there are some eligibility criteria that has been given by the government or the exchange to register company as a public limited company. It is always a requirement of a stock exchange to, if a company wants to offer its shares to the general public, then it should be registered as a full public limited company. So until and unless you are not registered, you have not registered your company as a public limited company, you are not eligible to offer your shares to the general public. So except these two types, there are three other types of companies, or you can say the limited companies. They are not much famous in the market, but they do exist. So I'm just briefing about those types of limited companies too. One is the companies limited by guarantee. So have you heard about these? You must be, these are very common, the public limited company and a private limited company. But companies limited by a guarantee means that all the members of a company have a minimum guarantee. Like, for example, if I have a guarantee of 10,000, that means my investment is 10,000 and I have a guarantee to get back my 10,000. So these are the company where each and every member has a guarantee, fixed amount, right? So these are the companies known as companies limited by a guarantee. Then we have some companies by royal charter. Have you heard about the royal families in England, in UK? So these are the royal families who are having their own companies, right? So these are the companies where no one outside the royal family can enter. So these are the companies established by the royal charter, right? And the third one is your closed company. Closed company generally have 4 to 5 people who have the control over the company. Closed company can be both like private or public. So what do? You just have 4 or 5 people who are actually controlling and running the company. They could have more members as a sleeping partner, sleeping shareholders, you can say, who have just invested in the company, but they are not controlling the company. So any company who is controlled by just 4 or 5 people is known as a closed company. And again, I'm saying it can be both private limited company or a public limited company. So these are the some forms of the limited company, where I started with the private limited company, public limited company, companies limited by guarantee, companies by royal charter, and the closed companies. So these are the types of companies. In the further, we will study what is the advantage, like pros and cons of being a limited company. आपकी अगर कोई लिमिटेड कंपनी है तो उसके आपको क्या एडवांटेजेस हैं, क्या प्रोज हैं एंड क्या कॉन्स हैं. तो why you should start your business as a limited company, और आपको अपना business as a limited company क्यों नहीं start करना चाहिए, that we are going to discuss further. I hope it is clear till now that what are the 4 types of business entities and the further types of your limited companies. So now start discussing the benefits and the limitations of a limited company. So why you should start your business as a limited company? What do you think? What are the advantages of starting your business or having a limited company? The foremost important advantage is that it is easier to raise capital as a limited company. Now I said easier to raise capital. Tell me why it is easier to raise capital as a limited company. So students, we have discussed almost all types of business entities. So as a partnership firm, can you raise the capital? Like if you want 100 crores for your company to expand or to operate, so as a partnership you can raise this amount, or as a limited company it is easier? As a limited company it is easier to raise this amount. Because why it is easier to raise? Because if you are offering your shares, your ownership in the public, then you are expanding your business to, you have a widership of securities, and also any small investor can also invest in your company. It is not just who wants to invest crores are just the investors. If anyone wants to just purchase 5 shares of your company, then he or she is also an investor. So any small investor, any small amount can be used to raise that capital. But in the case of all other business entities, it is not easy to raise this much amount, right? So this is the main advantage of the limited company, as it is easier to raise capital. Okay. Now, any other advantage you can think of can be the separation of ownership and the managers. That is, if your owners are separated from the running or the operating of the business. Have you, if suppose you are the shareholders of a company or you have purchased 100 shares of the particular company XYZ, अगर आपने रिलायंस कंपनी के 100 शेयर्स परचेज कर लिए हैं या फिर आपने हेवल्स कंपनी के 100 शेयर्स परचेज किए, सो डू यू थिंक आर यू रनिंग द कंपनी और आर यू ऑपरेटिंग द कंपनी? या फिर अगर कल को आप अपने शेयर सेल करके चले जाते हैं तो क्या वो कंपनी बंद हो जाएगी या उस कंपनी के ऑपरेशंस में कोई डिफरेंस आएगा? नो. द मेन advantage of a limited company that there is a separation of ownership and management. अगर पार्टनरशिप फॉर्म में एक पार्टनर कंपनी छोड़ के चला जाता है, then it makes a difference, it makes an impact. If the shareholders, new shareholders are coming or they are selling their shares, though it does not affect the business. So this is the main advantage, that if I sell my shares, if I think the company is not good, I am selling my shares, this won't impact the business of the company. First advantage is that it is easy to raise capital. Then the second, the separation of ownership and management makes it easier to continuation of the business. And also this type of limited company this type of business entity is beneficial for all those businesses who are incurring the large risk. So students, can you think of any company who is having the major risk? For example, the insurance companies. Please think of insurance company. Can you run an insurance company as a partnership firm or as a LLP? No, because in an insurance company there is a major risk. Any investor or the shareholder or any person who has invested in a company can go bankrupt because the risk is involved in the insurance company. Major risk is involved in the share company as there is much uncertainty. तो जितना uncertainty होगा उतना risk ज़्यादा होगा, और since यहाँ पर risk बहुत ज़्यादा है तो कोई भी investor विदाउट अ लिमिट अनलिमिटेड लाइबिलिटी के लिए कभी भी इस वेंचर में एंटर नहीं करेगा. सो द बिजनेसेस विच इन्वॉल्व द मेजर रिस्क शुड register themselves as a limited company, not other types of business entities. So we have many advantages of registering our company or starting our business as a limited company. As I said that we have a separation of ownership and the management, so it is easy to hire the professional managers for a company. Suppose if I am running my own business as a sole trader or as a partnership with my friend or my colleague, so what will happen? I won't hire any professional. I would like to do everything at my own, right? But in the case of limited companies, the companies can hire professional managers to run their business more appropriately. So these are the advantages of a limited company. Now coming to the disadvantage, as you know that every coin has two sides. If you have any advantage of something, then you have disadvantage too. Okay, so as an investor, I would like to ask you, as an investor or as a creditor, what do you think? What is the disadvantage of investing in a limited company? Please think about it. अगर मैं किसी कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करती हूँ और मैं किसी कंपनी में शेयर होल्डर हूँ तो मेरे लिए क्या डिसएडवांटेज है? सो द डिसएडवांटेज इज दैट स्टूडेंट्स, आप लोगों ने सुना होगा दैट वेयर देयर इज अ रिस्क देयर इज मोर रिटर्न. सो जैसे ही आपका रिस्क ज़्यादा होगा तो रिटर्न भी ज़्यादा होगा. तो वाई पीपल गो फॉर द शेयर्स इन द कंपनी? बिकॉज रिटर्न ज़्यादा है बट वहाँ पर रिस्क भी ज़्यादा है. So why there is more risk in the case of limited companies? Because there is no way of ensuring your payment, right? अगर आप गवर्नमेंट FDs या फिर गवर्नमेंट RDs में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, then the return is less. आपको बहुत कम रिटर्न मिलेगा बट वहाँ पर आपका रिस्क नहीं है. You will get your payment back. But in the case of limited companies, there is more risk. Why there is more risk? Because in the case of bankruptcy, in the case of winding up of a company, there is no way of ensuring your payment. That is, अगर कंपनी बंद हो जाती है तो there is no one that who is going to pay your payment back. आपको अपनी payment back नहीं मिलेगी. So this is the disadvantage for the creditor, for the investor to invest in a limited company. Okay. So now I'll think as a company. Okay, ये तो इन्वेस्टर के लिए डिसएडवांटेज हो गया. एज अ कंपनी, अगर मैं एज अ ओनर मैं अपने बिजनेस को एज अ लिमिटेड कंपनी स्टार्ट करती हूँ तो व्हाट इज द डिसएडवांटेज फॉर मी? ओके, अब मैं what I want as a owner or a founder of a business, that I want to make maximum profits. I ask you to invest in my company. You will say, fine, I am investing my 1 lakh rupees. I want 1.5 lakhs back after 2 years. No problem. So is this, yes, I am able to raise my money, I am able to raise the capital, but are you thinking of the long-term aims or the objectives of a company? No. You are just thinking of your objective of getting the maximum returns. You are not thinking of the long-term needs or the long-term objectives of my company. Right? So to the company, what is the disadvantage? That all the investors and the shareholders are there for their benefits, for their maximization of the profit, not for the company. कंपनी अगर 2 साल बाद मैं आपको 1.5 lakhs रिटर्न कर देती हूँ, तो आप उसके बाद नहीं सोचोगे कि कंपनी बहुत अच्छा बिजनेस कर रही है या नहीं कर रही है. यू आर जस्ट ओवर विद योर रिटर्न्स एंड यू आर सेटिस्फाइड. बट एज अ कंपनी मुझे पता था वो मनी शायद मैंने आपको रिटर्न ना देके कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट किया होता, तो आज मेरी कंपनी 10 साल बाद बहुत बड़ी कंपनी बन गई होती और मैं आपको शायद 1 lakhs के 5 lakhs दे पाती. But you thought of your short-term requirements, your short-term profit, but not as the long-term needs of my company. So हम किसी भी कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो हम कंपनी के लिए इन्वेस्ट नहीं करते, हम अपने लिए इन्वेस्ट करते हैं. So this is the main disadvantage of a limited company. Fine. So हमने डिस्कस किए एडवांटेजेस भी और डिसएडवांटेजेस भी. कैन यू थिंक ऑफ एनी अदर डिसएडवांटेज एज अ कंपनी? So yes, there is one more advantage which is for the shareholders. Okay, why as a shareholder you have a disadvantage? As a shareholder, what you are doing, you are aiming for the maximization of the profit of the business, or I am also working for the company, but maybe for the managers whom I have hired for my company, they have different objectives. Students, remember in the last modules we have studied about the agency problem, which is what is agency problem? That the principal and agent have different objectives or conflicting objectives. So here also this is the disadvantage of the shareholders, that as a shareholder I may have different objective and the manager whom I have hired is having a different objective working as for a company. So this is again the disadvantage, that the managers may not work for the best interest of the company. So these are the disadvantages of starting the business as a limited company. So students, after discussing all the types of business entities and their advantages, their disadvantages, their pros and cons, what do you think? If you are starting a business, what factors, what points should you consider before starting a business, before deciding as what business entity you are going to start your business? So there are some points you should consider before starting the business. So सबसे पहले अगर मैं अपना business start कर रही हूँ तो मुझे कुछ points अपने mind में रखने होंगे, उनके बेसिस पे आई विल डिसाइड कि मुझे कौन सा बिजनेस स्टार्ट करना है. सबसे पहले कि मेरा बिजनेस कैसा है, क्या उसमें बहुत ज़्यादा रिस्क इन्वॉल्व है या नहीं है. सेकेंड पॉइंट इज नीड फॉर द कैपिटल. डू आई नीड द कैपिटल? डू आई नीड इन्वेस्टर्स टू इन्वेस्ट इन माई कंपनी, और आई हैव माई ओन सेविंग्स, इनफ सेविंग्स? Right. Then the ease to raise the capitals. Do I have much and many contacts who can invest my company, or I want common people or the public to invest in my company? So 3 points. What type of risk is involved in my business? What if there is, whether there is a need for money or not? Then whether there is a ease of raising the capital or not. Then other points can you think of? Do you want your company to be closed or not? Right? Do you want to take the responsibilities, or you want to transfer your responsibilities to your juniors? So these are the some points कि क्या आप उन responsibilities को, क्या आप उस business को खुद operate करेंगे, या फिर आप अपने प्रोफेशनल मैनेजर्स को हायर करेंगे या फिर एम्प्लॉयज़ को हायर करेंगे उस काम को करने के लिए. सो बिफोर स्टूडेंट्स थिंकिंग ऑफ एनी बिजनेस venture, before starting any business, you should consider many factors before starting and decide what type of business. ऐसा नहीं है कि मेरे पास कैपिटल नहीं है, मेरे पास कॉन्टैक्ट्स नहीं है, मेरे बिजनेस में बहुत ज़्यादा रिस्क है, तब भी आई एम गोइंग फॉर दी पार्टनरशिप फर्म. और मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा कैपिटल की नीड नहीं है और मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा एम्प्लॉयज़ की नीड नहीं है, आई कैन हैंडल माई ओन बिजनेस, एंड देन ऑल्सो आई एम गोइंग फॉर रजिस्टरिंग माई बिजनेस एज अ लिमिटेड कंपनी. So students, now I am telling you the points one by one which you should consider while deciding for a business. That is your need for finance, the ease of raising the finance, as we have discussed, is it easy for me to raise the finance or not. Then the liability for debts, that is whether I have loans or not, whether I want to go for the loan. Then ease of setting up, there is an ease of setting up the business or not. It is easy to set a company or it is easy to start it as a sole trader. Then you have the control of the business, whether you want to control your business or not. Then we have the roles of responsibility and the type of business. Is it a manufacturing firm? Is it a software firm, IT company? Is it just a sale purchase of any product? You are just importing and exporting the material. So what type of business you are having, that depends on you. That will affect your decision to register your business as a which entity, right? So these are the key points. You should consider these points and you should be aware of all the advantages and disadvantages of your business type of business entity. So I hope students that now you have the knowledge of the types of business entities that are available in the market and options do have as to start your business. Thank you students. Keep learning. Stay safe.